Hey everybody, I didn't plan on making a follow-up video on this matter, but this stuff really needs to be addressed in a much more direct and no BS kind of way because somehow it actually has gotten worse and there's still too many people online defending this, and frankly it has reached the point of it being annoying. In the last video we had a nice little time here, somewhat calmly going point by point, addressing various arguments found online and pretty much just dismantling them into dust, exposing just how weak, frail and nonsensical and frankly even pathetic these people Shilling is. Not really hard to do, this is really just that indefensible. It's like they don't even think, they just go, oh, inflation, and then we're just supposed to clap and forget all the other surrounding factors. Like the massive growth in the industry resulting in there being millions and millions more people getting into gaming every year, or the fact that the games industry has been setting record revenue, eclipsing Hollywood. Someone please explain to me how inflation is an issue and we're supposed to be so lucky that games have not gone up in price over so many years, when at the same time there's a ridiculous amount of money being generated. The fact is, the price of a video game is fine just the way that it is, and if someone is able to make a good game that actually appeals to people, they will sell. Gamers have shown that we will show up in droves and buy them. Just look at how much money Monster Hunter Wilds just made. This price point not only provides sustainability, but it allows companies to make massive profits, especially if these companies manage to make these games without wasting hundreds of millions of dollars on who knows what. Wasteful, frivolous spending is a real enemy here, and it's not our responsibility to cover for it by paying an unreasonable amount of money per unit. The other enemy is bad games, plain and simple. These companies waste their time and resources making stuff that doesn't appeal to players and running their studios into the ground with policies and initiatives that don't do for improving games, or they get too comfortable and start playing it safe, making mediocre games that people look at and think, yeah, I'm not gonna pay that much for this. And this will only become worse with these games costing more money, but more on this later. This was part of what we talked about in the previous video alongside responding to those terrible arguments. Today we're gonna go more directly at Nintendo and their terrible response to questions and backlash. And yeah, there may be some collateral damage here and there because of some of the terrible takes that I've seen in defense of it, but I just don't care anymore. Defending this has gone from misguided or uninformed to straight up retarded, so get yourself some juice or some iced tea and let's get in there. So first off on this article with a response from Doug Bowser, the president of Nintendo America, and yes, by the way, that is his actual name, and he used to work at EA, which is about to become very apparent. You know, some people, they're just born for their jobs. Not even because his name is Bowser, but because he's an ass. But anyway, the first order of business was once again confirming that these prices that they set had nothing to do with the Trump tariffs. It was already obvious before they admitted it the first time a couple days ago, but still, you know, morons and the media, they keep repeating the same point over and over and over again, and even though Nintendo just admitted it again for the second time, you can expect these people to keep doing the same thing, repeating the same stuff, or moving the goalposts to the dead obvious claim that yes, while the tariffs had no effect on this decision, they may impact Switch 2 prices in the United States in the future, may being the keyword here. Meanwhile, they keep not acknowledging the price of the console at all, the subscription service to talk to people, the $10 access to the tech demo, the price hike on the games, etc. Like, these people, and this includes the media too, especially even, they straight up expose themselves as people that don't really care about the games or the console or the state of the market. They're just here to politicize the issue. Like, there's even articles about this shit in my country, like in my country's version of Eurogamer and IGN and etc. Even though we have nothing to do with the fucking tariffs. Like, the price is already set up over here, it's the same as in America, and Nintendo released a statement saying that Switch 2 pre-orders are delayed for America because of the tariff situation. Here, in the land of prostitutes and red wine, in the land of soccer and peanuts, in the land of Cristiano Ronaldo and cream pastries, there's nothing going on. You can pre-order a Switch 2 right now and pay 90 euros for Mario Kart World, because that's what Nintendo did. But instead we've got articles talking about the Orange Man across the fucking ocean. But anyway, let's move on. Then, this is what's really important, they addressed the price increase on the games by saying this load of bullshit right here. First off, Bowser noted that the other marquee title, Donkey Kong Bonanza, remains at the standard retail price for premium games of $70. What you see right here is variable pricing, Bowser told the Washington Post. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into them, the breadth and depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of gameplay experiences. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark. So this is variable pricing, and the way it works is the So, the motherfuckers making the game, because of course they are totally a trusted and impartial source, are going to be the ones evaluating each game internally. They're gonna look at the development that's gone into the game, which means nothing. They're gonna look at the breadth and the depth of the gameplay, which also means fuck all. They're gonna look at how things, they're gonna look at how long you can play it for, which, you guessed it, means nothing. And then they're gonna look at the replayability of the game. And then, through all of these powers combined, they're going to set the price at whatever the fuck they want and damn well please based on those retarded metrics that they are in no position of judging for themselves. This is like if each company had its own built-in ESRB for rating their own games, in which they would gladly label them all as E for everyone and hide any aspect at all that could be concerning for parents or other buyers, like for example, in-game purchases or gambling. You're accusing me of putting gambling in my video games? I would never do that. These are just surprise mechanics, okay? Get with the times. A basic increase of a premium game, which by the way, the word itself, premium game, also means nothing. It literally just means that it's a AAA game, and we all know how that goes. It doesn't speak for their quality, like last year, Ubisoft released the very first quadruple A game ever, and it was such a pile of dog shit that nobody even remembers its name. I'm not even going to mention it right now or put it on screen so some of you can have a bit of fun trying to figure out which forgettable pile of slop it was. But let's get back to the point. A basic $10 increase of a premium game from $70 to $80 would have already been bad and unacceptable, since there's no excuse or justification at all, and if you think there is, feel free to watch my previous video or tell me why in the comments and I may actually reply. Probably with a link or a timestamp because I already talked about this. But this is even worse. This straight up indicates that $80 is not the maximum that they'll ever price a game at. It's probably the minimum. See, because Donkey Kong Bonanza is $70. As Bowser describes it, it's the standard retail price for premium games. So Nintendo is more than happy to follow the standard retail price for the garbage that they don't deem as too good for the market. Donkey Kong could very well be worth $50 or $60 within their little internal clown show. But nah, you're still going to pay $70 because that's just the standard retail price, which is already a $10 increase on what they usually price their games at, which is $60, but whatever. This is something that I'm willing to let go because at the end of the day, all the other big pricks in the industry have already moved their prices to $70, whether they are worth the money or not. So Nintendo doing it as well just makes them as big of a prick as the rest, which everyone already knows that they are anyway, except for the shills, so why not wear that hat as well? But oh, when Nintendo makes something that they for some reason deem special, then they're going to use this variable pricing in order to screw over their consumers out of sheer, purely distilled greed. And I mean, have you seen that Mario Kart World footage? If that is what they consider to be worth $80, then you best prepare your asses for the next Zelda game to reach $90 or even $100, because that hits all the checkboxes that this dude has, described here. In fact, it's like he's already finessing his way into it. It's like he's already preparing the crowd. Hey, listen to these words because they're going to come up again in the future when we have to excuse another egregious price. There's no benchmark, and if you can't afford it, well, you can go
a lot of people ask why. Why treat the customer this way? Why? Because fuck them, that's why.
But in reality, you can honestly do this with anything. Like if I put on my corpo bullshitter hat, which I have one, back in 1612 I used to work at General Motors. And so if I want to, I can justify the price of Assassin's Creed Shadows at $100 or even more as an example of what this industry is going to do if this variable pricing garbage works out and takes hold across other companies with the way that the $70 price tag also took hold. As well as the rest, of course, the loot boxes, the microtransactions, the pre-order bonuses, the additions of this and the additions of that, the battle passes, all of that garbage. Really take a look at the development that's gone into the game. I mean, are you kidding me? This point alone is already enough to get any of these big AAA companies to go crazy with their price tags because of how much money they've been wasting. Sony would have been so happy to see this a couple of years ago with Spider-Man 2, for example, because somehow they found a way to spend $315 million on that game. Despite the game selling well, they only made $375 million, ending up with a piss-poor profit for what should have been an easy slam dunk. And let's not even speak of Concord. Of course, far be it from me to incur the rage of the Sony fanboys in this video by not giving examples of other companies wasting money frivolously, so here's a few more on screen. But I'm just saying, Sony has been a pretty goddamn bad example of this recently. And actually, Square Enix is an even better example in a way, because one of the things that this variable pricing thing can become is basically companies make mistakes in other games, in other ventures that fail completely, and then what they would do is basically, shit, our company's not doing very well, we gotta sell this game right now, it's about to come out, instead of pricing it normally, let's hike up the price by $20 and let's bullshit our way into saying that this game is worth that much money through variable pricing. And this is because they will want to offset their losses on other projects by pinning them on current projects. We can kinda see a little bit of this with what happened with Final Fantasy XVI. Despite the game selling pretty well, in 1 week alone, it sold 3 million copies. That's 3 million copies sold, not 3 million players. Obviously, that's not like nothing gigantic, but it is pretty significant, and yet Square Enix still declared that this game sold less than they expected. And it's like a running gag with Square Enix. Anytime they release a game, it's always less than expected, and I think that this has a lot to do with their mistakes. I think they're still trying to make their money back on what happened with that Marvel's Avengers game that they put out, and on Forspoken, for example. Variable pricing on its own is not like this terrible boogeyman kind of thing, but on the hands of companies that cannot be trusted, it absolutely is, because you know that they're going to bullshit their way into pricing their games higher than they actually are worth. With variable pricing becoming a thing, anytime a studio screws up and wastes a bunch of money on a game, they're going to pump up the price of the game regardless of if it's worth it or not. Spider-Man 2, for example, wasn't even worth the $70. I got the platinum in 23 hours and was left feeling so robbed that I immediately sold it after I was done. $70 for a sequel with 2 protagonists that had less content and less playtime than the first game with only 1 protagonist? Now imagine that at an even higher cost. For Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed Shadows, for example, they could literally cook up a PR speech about how much time, effort, love, sweat, tears, piss, snot, doo-doo water, etc. went to the development of the Assassin's Creed Shadows, the one with the longest development cycle with a huge 4-year gap between mainline releases, never seen before in the Assassin's Creed franchise. And you know what? Maybe some of that could have even been true. Maybe all of it could have been true. It still wouldn't justify a price increase. Next up, the breadth and depth of the gameplay. I don't think Bowser even knows what the fuck he's talking about with this. It's honestly so vague. What makes gameplay wide and deep? Like, what are the credentials here? Anyone can just make anything up. Ubisoft could just be like, oh, Japan is the widest and most far-reaching and detailed game world ever created by our team, and we have many deep and intricate systems. And then they just, start talking about random shit like, look, we got a weather system, and it gets windy. We got snow, and it melts. We got changing seasons. We got animals and shit. We got, waves in the water. And we got, night and day cycles. Dynamic. It's happening right in front of your eyes, folks. And this is top-of-the-line tech here, by the way, so keep it on the down low. But we also have, believe it or not, bamboo that you can slice in half. None of it means anything. I mean, Death Stranding could come out, Hideo Kojima could come out and be like, you can take a piss literally anywhere in the world. anywhere. I'm sorry to bring it back to, Spider-Man 2 again, but I have to, because I remember an article going around at the time which was glazing the importance and delicate expertise in the hand animations for the black girlfriend of Miles Morales, who is deaf and spoke, with her hands, the sign language. Like, I don't give a fuck about any of this. Oh, witness the motion capture magic of Haley Cooper. I don't care about it for free. Now imagine being made to care about it for an extra $10 or $20. Then we got the durability over time and the repeatability of gameplay experiences. And oh my god, guys, this is where Ubisoft would cook and maybe even find a way to argue that their standard price should be well above $100, because they literally bloated the fuck out of Assassin's Creed Shadows to such an insane extent that it's literally a single-player live service game. I mean, it even has a battle pass built into it and everything. And you can't even complete anything. The game is constantly cycling seasons, so anytime that you're out and about clearing outposts and bandit camps, you will have all of them reset, both the loot and the enemies inside, whenever the season changes again. And like side quests, they're infinite. They got like a little thing that just keeps giving you side quests, just a random fucking NPC spawns in with, can you kill this guy halfway across the map, please? And off you go to do that job, and then you come back and you got more jobs and more contracts. This shit never ends, bro.
They got you by the balls.
And the season, they change all the time too. Like, historically speaking, Yasuke was in Japan for about a year, but you can just see the seasons changing to the point where in my game, personally, it's already been like 3 years. In fact, sometimes it's so goofy that you will start a quest and it's like, go there and assassinate Big Chungus, and then I go do that, and then I fast travel back to the quest giver and the fucking seasons change. So it's as if I spent the last 3 months tracking down some random moron in the woods. Peak content, fellas. Anyway, so this game can literally be played and replayed indefinitely. In fact, Ubisoft can even make further arguments by saying that, yo, you guys can play the game and always select Naue, and that's one way. And then you guys can finish the game and start over and always select Yasuke, and that's like a whole other way. And if you're really, really crazy, you can start a new run and interchange between them anytime. And what's even crazier is you can actually start again a 4th time and play in canon mode, and that's a whole other way. This game is worth $1 bajillion just for this, guys. Please, guys, please, Tencent is breathing down our necks, guys. Please buy the game for the bajillion. Please buy it. Like, come on, man, give me a fucking break here, guys. Why are people defending this garbage? Where's this copium coming from? And the arguments I see too, it's enough to make a man want to immigrate to Saturn or some shit. I don't mind paying $80 for a video game, it's not really that expensive. Well, congratulations. Do me a favor though, pay $70 for them instead, then grab the extra $10, wipe your ass with them and shut the fuck up. But Sony did it. Sony did the PS5 for $500 with 70 dongler launch games. We made a few jokes about its empty game library, but otherwise no drama, no dogpile, not a peep. Can someone explain why Sony never get the same level of hate as Microsoft and Nintendo, despite being worse than both? Guys, leave the billion-dollar company alone. I know we should have stopped the previous billion-dollar company, but since we didn't, we have to give a pass to this billion-dollar company. Seriously, what the fuck is Razor Fist talking about? He was one of the shit takes in my previous video as well, going off about how 35 years ago, video games were much more expensive, so, who cares if they're $80 now? And with this, he's just revisioning history now. Apparently, back when Sony launched the PS5 at $500 and $70 per game, everyone just made some cool jokes. Everyone was just like, hashtag expensive, hashtag Sony got no games. Like, what is this? Was he gooning instead of paying attention to what's going on? People complained and tried to fight against the price hike, but sadly we lost. And part of why we lost was morons and fanboys making comments and posts just like these. But the Monko Microsoft did this and the Nintendo did that. Why is Songy always the one getting in trouble? Why is Songy always getting the hate? And then, you know, from this, it shifts into a bunch of other shit, like, oh, my console's better than yours, we got more teraflops, no, mine is better than yours, our games are better, no, you know, your games are shit, our games are the ones that are actually better, you know, I can play mine in the toilet while I'm taking a shit, you can't do that, you know, all this bullshit. And in the meantime, all the other greedy little fucks and the other publishers were just waiting and salivating at the thought of increasing the price of a standard copy of a video game, were immediately making their moves, all together establishing a new standard price for AAA releases. It's kinda like society and politics. Anytime governments wanna push some shit on us, what they do, they separate us and get us fighting over trivial shit while they do the damage. Same thing in this industry. While the retards are picking fights about nonsense that doesn't matter, these top dollar companies are making their moves. And it's going to happen again, because we already have the same companies salivating at the thought of raising the price of a standard copy of a game by $10 extra into 80. We actually already had executives talk about it in the past, which is why there's this rumor going on about GTA 6 potentially even going for 100. And with more people like Razorfist playing the fence, they're going to do it. And then these very people, the same people, are going to start making videos afterwards about how bad it is and how stupid and gullible people are for buying the shit while acting as if they're on another plane of existence, fighting the power after paying lip service to it just to be edgy contrarians. At the end of the day, these companies are never going to make people undervalue their money. Even with the price hike from 60 to 70, this didn't happen. $70 is still a hefty price, and I think that we've already seen that effect in more ways than one. Not only are people straight up being more cautious, because of course $70 is $70, know what I mean? Again, it's like a psychological thing. I explained this in my previous video a little bit. It's kind of like paying for coffee. There's only so much you're willing to pay for a coffee, up to a point where you're like, I'm not paying that much for a coffee. Similarly, there's only so much you're willing to pay for a video game until it becomes irresponsible. And also straight up just not worth it, you know, kind of like hitting a certain point where you're like, I'm not going to pay this much for a game, I'm instead going to play all of the other dozens or even hundreds of games in my backlog, maybe replay a favorite game that I enjoyed, maybe check the seasonal sales and buy something at a much better value, all while I wait for the game to drop in price. But honestly, there's even more to this, you know, like for example, you know how some companies, actually most of them, use that whole $1.99 or $4.99 or $9.99 just to excuse themselves from setting the price at a rounded number? It's called left digit effect. It's like a psychological thing where it increases the chances that consumers will perceive $4.99 as a much more enticing purchase than $5. And you know, this is not it. This is not the effect that I'm talking about in the games industry, even though this obviously also exists. You know, it's always $59.99 or $69.99. It's never the rounded number. It's just something else. I don't know if it has a name or not, but it's just something else in the way that we perceive value. If you really think about it on the surface level, then the increase from $60 to $70 was just $10. And now the increase from $70 to $80 would just be $10 more. You know, it's just $10. Everyone can afford $10, right? It's just an extra 10. But I believe that psychologically there's a line separating those $60 from those $70. It's a weird thing, you know, it's like there's this scale and it goes from like 0 to 100, and 50 is basically the sweet spot. It's a halfway point. If games were selling at this value, people would be far more inclined towards getting the latest game, even if they weren't that sure of it, and even if they didn't like it very much, they would be more forgiving when reviewing them or recommending them with word of mouth. Everyone knows what I'm talking about right now. It's a very general feeling. Me personally, I felt it very strongly with Rise, Son of Rome and The Order 1886. I actually really like these games. I got them both at $12 each. For this amount, I had a great time with them in 2021. But if I had paid full price for them at release, then holy crap, I would have raged out and I would have sold them immediately. And I think Ubisoft games live perpetually on this line, you know what I mean? Like, it's always way too much money for them at launch, but at a cheaper price, they're not so bad. Whether we acknowledge it consciously or not, that's always there. And at $60, we were only over that sweet spot by just a little bit. And it felt fair. fair. In several ways it felt fair. There were games that were coming out, they were fantastic. It felt like a fair trade. But at $70, we're already further away from that sweet spot. The cost of buying a game is now something that is edging closer to those $100, which is basically this black region where the majority of people just never even find conceivable to spend on a video game. Still, we're still somewhere in the middle at 70, so maybe sometimes if it's something that we really want and really looks good and has good reviews, you know, maybe every now and then a bit of a guilty pleasure, you know, a bit of a form of treating ourselves, maybe we'll buy something. But there's this natural uneasy feeling. At $60 things felt fair for most players. At $70 they're already crossing a line. People are more cautious, they're not buying games as easily, they're already informing themselves way more than ever before, and many are already outright not buying them, you know, just saving that money for when it's a game that's really special to them, and when it's not, which is most of them, let's be honest here, people are preferring to wait, buy something on sale instead, check out the indie market, or just play something from their backlog while waiting for the price to go down or for sales to come into effect. And if we get to $80, you're already crossing over into that red zone where you're now right on top of the absolutely ridiculous concept of spending nearly $100 worth of what could be groceries, gas, bills, medication, or just about anything else on a video game. And even if your bills are doing fine, like even if your bills are paid, you're doing just fine in life, it can also just be like 3 or 4 other games offering a much higher value for our money. You can't erase the value that people put on their money, no matter how many arguments you can come up with in regards to inflation or older game prices or whatever the hell else. It doesn't matter. In the customer's mind, $70 are $70, and $80 or anything beyond that is a ridiculous asking price. It's not that you couldn't at some times or at some point find one game, one rare triumph that could just make you go over that edge and make you spend $80. Like for example for me, I admit that I would be very tempted at Red Dead Redemption 2. I would have been very tempted at Cyberpunk 2077 before finding out it launched all screwed up. I would have been very tempted at Sekiro and Elden Ring, but honestly, that's about it. And even then, there would have to be a massive amount of FOMO playing into it as well, because otherwise, I just don't have a reason to spend that much money on a game. I can just wait until it's at a price that is actually fair and doesn't feel like I'm being a fucking idiot. And again, you know, those are just special games. There are games that made a lot of money even while being sold at $60. Those are games that would be always successful. But applying these prices to bad games or to mid games, it's going to be a disaster. Earlier today, I even had a guy on my comments saying that the reality is that this is the way that it's going to be, and it is inevitable and useless to be mad at it because it's a long time coming. He says that he's a software developer and inflation has hit very hard, making everything more expensive. Nintendo wants more money, and so do the developers who work in the industry. And in part, he's right. Of course, the developers want more money. Everybody wants more money. The cost of living went up for everyone, after all, not just for the developers, but also for the people buying games. He gives the anecdotal example of milk costing 20% more now than it did in 2020, and so will the consoles and their accompanying games. But yeah, again, cost of living has gone up for everyone, and $70 are still $70. You can never escape this factor unless we all suddenly get our wages to go up to the point where $70 becomes a smaller value for us. But more importantly, the industry is making money. They're not just giving it to the developers, and that's got nothing to do with us. You know what I mean? I don't know if this guy is a game developer or not, but this is about the games industry. And when it comes to the AAA space in the industry, which is the space that's going to 100% be jumping in on this bandwagon of making their games $80, the money is there. The only developers that can complain are indie developers. You know, they set their own prices. Sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. Many of them have to work while they already have other jobs going. But if you are a developer or working at Nintendo or for any of these companies that are on the AAA space, the money is there. And if you are not being paid accordingly, it's not because there's not enough money coming in per unit. You're not being paid accordingly because the company doesn't want to pay you accordingly. And that money is going elsewhere. A game is already a high value purchase. The increase to $70 has only gone on to make people think twice and consider just waiting for a sale or a price drop, often because the games aren't even good enough to be asking for a price this high. The consumer isn't the one who has to bear the responsibility of mismanagement. management. They're just going to stop buying. Currently, game sales are already a problem for so many of these publishers at $70. How is that going to get any better at $80? It's not. The real reality is, if this goes through, it's going to exacerbate the problem, and even more people will be getting laid off in restructurings or shutdowns. If a flop or poor performing title is already bad right now, just wait until there's even more money on the line. No matter how I look at this, and I've looked at it from many angles, I cannot find a justification for this at all. And that's what bothers me the most about it when I see people shilling for it. I don't understand at all, especially from people who presented themselves as people who advocate for the good of the industry, or at least for the good of the medium, like some of the folks that we mentioned already in this video and in previous videos on this matter. And yes, that even includes Sungrant Studios, and I don't like saying this, I like the guy. I complimented him in a video of mine recently on how he approaches these issues in the industry to do with the culture war with a very calm and professional demeanor, only for him to turn around now and excuse blatant anti-consumer practices from Nintendo just because he favors the company. Like he genuinely believes that this company is honest and caring of their users. Like this corporation is not like the other corporations just because he's got maybe some sort of personal attachment, you know, in childhood, and I understand that, I really do. Nintendo has always cultivated this for a very long time, but that time is gone. People like Satoru Iwata, who took a pay cut from his own paycheck in order to sustain the company and not go through layoffs, they're gone. The people who helped to build up the gaming medium out of sheer love for it are gone. They did a brilliant job and they made a lot of money out of it. And a lot of the people that are replacing them now, they saw that money. They saw the potential for profit, and now that's all that they care about. They basically took their hard work and corrupted it to now be able to profit out of it far more than those original people ever did. But it doesn't see that, you know, for example with the cartridge problem. And that's one in a long list of bad things that he just wants to be positive about and excuse, claiming that it's the adult way. But if it was any other company doing it, he would 100% be making these videos criticizing them. But anyway, the cartridge issue. He tries to spin it as, oh hey, at least they have the studios place a warning on the game box saying if a game is not fully on the cartridge and requires downloading. This way, studios and companies will never be able to hide that fact. Oh, if only there was a company that cared about the people, blah 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 blah. I mean, come on dude. I mean, what is this?
If only there was some company who actually cared about the user experience for its customers. If only there was a company that actually cared about transparency and honesty and accountability. Oh, what's that? Oh, Nintendo has implemented a policy so publishers have to disclose if the entire game is on the cartridge?
Oh hey there, mega corporation. Thank you for fucking me over while looking deeply into my warm brown eyes instead of raw dogging me from behind. You're so kind and caring of my user experience. I would believe Nintendo was caring of their platform and of their fans in this scenario if they just carried on having the games on their platform to be on the cartridges. I mean, come on, if CD Projekt Red can fit Cyberpunk 2077 into a cartridge and doesn't have to engage in any of this download nonsense, then what excuse do other companies have? The fact is that this is just opening the doors for other companies to abuse the system and prevent people from owning games. Remember Ubisoft last year and their comment about us not owning their games? Remember even Larian themselves and Remedy with their digital-only launches that they then thankfully changed their minds on and released on disc? Look at Microsoft as well, releasing every single first-party game digitally only. And if you want a nice fancy edition of it with a box, they'll give it to you, but they're not giving you a disc. We are going through a tricky time where these companies want to erode the meaning of game ownership and push us all into an all-digital future where we as consumers will only end up having less control over the market, less alternate avenues and options to help us vote with our wallets. With this, Nintendo is just helping us lose that fight. Nintendo is just opening that door in various ways too. It's not like it's just this, it's also that additional $10 for a physical copy over a digital one. If Nintendo was truly user-friendly and caring, they would be making it a requirement that the game has to be on the cartridge. And they would only open up an exception if the game was so homunculously big that there is no way at all that it could ever fit. And I'm just tired of seeing people defend this shit, and worse than that, not even just defend defending it but trying to reframe it in a positive, heroic way, like, ah, look at the company, look how nice and lovely this company is, look how much they care about you, the customer. Give me a break. I know Sungrand is going through some shit right now. I sympathize. I truly do. I tried to reach out in good faith to him on another video, trying to just explain where was the disconnect between himself and his fanbase, but at this point, this is just going well beyond that and into the territory of villainizing or insulting the intelligence of anyone who is rightfully pissed off at what Nintendo is doing, condescendingly so.
Let me make something clear. I am not here to tell you how to feel or how to think. I will share with you a wider, more well-considered perspective of these topics, and you can choose to either accept reality and take that information on board, or you can reject it and disagree with me. It's your choice. It is very sad to hear from so many people in the comment sections who have resigned themselves to never having any actual understanding of the world and life. If you view the world through a narrow perspective, then your understanding of the world will be narrow. There is no aspect ratio wide enough to give you a real, genuine understanding of the world and the people in it. Much of the negativity online is being fueled by false rumors, people spreading misinformation to fuel the negativity. A lot of what we see online, it seems that people are just maliciously making things up, posting screenshots of fake conversations and spreading that online because they know that it will spread. There's no point in wasting time on people that do not want to listen and they have no interest in buying Nintendo products anyway, and I'm hoping that I can share a bit of my insight with you today. People creating hate content and whipping people up into a frenzy will make this task very difficult. It's frustrating, I know. We don't want to have to look at a video that says, oh, Nintendo is anti-consumer, they're greedy, they're hateful, they're angry. Of course we don't want to look at those things, so we won't open those videos, we won't listen to that, because it's pretty obvious those people just want to generate hatred, so we're not going to hear any of the feedback. Have you figured it out yet? Hey. 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 Look here. Are you paying attention? What have you got there? What do you... Give me your phone. Give me that. What is this? Cocoa melon?
If that's the path that he wants to take, it is what it is. But I don't get it at all. I mean, what the hell are we even doing here? They're charging $10 for a glorified demo to show you Switch 2 features. Like, these motherfuckers are actually going like, hey fellas, that'll be $10 so you can see what this system can do. They seriously couldn't put that up for free with the system? Are they really this greedy, this filled with avarice, that a stupid-ass tech demo has to be monetized? Nintendo is fucking cooked, and they're leading the charge towards certain egregious things to be spread over to other companies in the AAA space, who are just there waiting like vultures to pounce on the opportunity to legitimize their price hikes without being laughed at and ridiculed. They want to sneak it under the table, know what I mean? They don't want to be the center of attention, they just want to be one more, hoping that it sticks. And you don't enact change in this industry by cucking out and making a video asking Doug Bowser, Mr. Actually, this is called variable pricing, and we will charge you whatever the fuck we want. If our game can be replayed, that'll be more money, please. If our game is really long, that'll be even more money, please. If we're retarded and overspend on development, that'll be more money, please. And asking him to please come out and communicate better to help people better understand the pricing and their concerns or whatever, because they need assurance.
What is important is listening to the people who do want to be your customers but are in a financial position where they are priced out of being able to enjoy the Nintendo Switch 2 games. They feel that the pricing is unfair. These people don't have the reassurance they need to feel comfortable purchasing these products. So what is important is to listen to and understand those people's positions. What people really need is more clarity and transparency as to the reason why prices are the way they are. What Nintendo's customers need right now is reassurance. Give me your phone. Give me that. What is this? Cocoa melon?
Good fucking luck. People don't want to understand why Nintendo is greedily fucking people over. They want them to cut this shit out and price their games the same as everyone else. They want more money? Fine. Hike it up to $70 and go nuts with the online subscription bullshit like everyone else in this industry. But pushing it further beyond that is an attack on consumers across the entire industry, especially with this variable pricing nonsense, and as such, it will be treated as an attack. The only assurance Nintendo can give people is by retracting all of this, not by putting out more PR statements trying to justify it. There's nothing that they can say, there's no justification for this at all. Just imagine this crap applied across the board. As a consumer, you would be paying more for a game even if you didn't want to engage with it the way that the developer intended. Like for example, let's take a random big open world game, you know, one of those big, bloated and sloppy ones that have hundreds of hours of boring, brain-dead, grindy content. And now let's say that you're more of a person who plays through the story only and maybe a few side quests. You know, for you, you'll play the game and you'll finish it in about 30-40 hours. But just because the company caked the game in shit to artificially inflate it up towards 100 plus hours of playtime, or because the company has enough different content in it to be considered replayable, or because the company decided to hire, I don't know, A-list celebrities or whatever to star in it, or the game was stuck in development hell and wasted hundreds of millions of dollars, you now have to pay extra than what you would usually pay for a game like this because of this variable pricing bullshit. This is unacceptable. It's as simple as that. You could even go and get the Pope himself to come down and try to justify this. You could get him to bless it, you know, in nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. It's not gonna work. These companies cannot self-evaluate for shit. They're always going to be whipping up bullshit in order to increase the price point. And you know, in the end, it is what it is. If this is what has to happen in order for these companies to fail even harder than what they're already failing right now, shutting down more teams, shutting down more studios, selling more slices of themselves off to China, as more and more people refuse to buy games at launch because of the stupid prices, then so be it. Just don't say that we didn't warn you. And if this leads towards the eradication of physical media because of the way that they want to control the market, trying to force us to buy these games digitally at launch at those high-ass prices, because you know that when they're digital, they're never going to lower the price. It's one thing when the game is physical, the price comes down, but if it's digital, they can keep that price at $80, $90, $100 for as long as they want. If they do that shit, the damage is going to be significantly worse as people will turn to piracy. Piracy is a service problem, and if the service comes down to treating consumers like shit and eroding every last bit of goodwill that we have, then things are really going to get interesting. But anyway, this has been a long enough rant. I'm getting the hell out of here. Thank you for watching. Like the video if this resonated at all with you, subscribe to stay in touch, and take care. I'll see you guys on the next one.